We are live.
Hello.
Thank goodness. Oh, I'm not scared at all. What time do you call this, Richard?
Oh, bang on time.
Not at all worried. Anyway, here we go. Is this working? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely. Another heaven slowly rises, the violence brought such silence to our existence. But you see, it's not me, it's not my family. In your head, they are fighting with their tanks and their bombs and their bombs and their guns. In your head, they are crying. In your head, there you go, that's all you're getting.
Brilliant. Big round of applause.
Isn't that just
Dolores O'Riordan would be proud of you, Ashley.
Just an amazing song. Thank you, mate. So, good afternoon, Richard.
Good afternoon. And wasn't that just what the people can't see? And what they didn't know was we were panicking about 30 seconds before going live. It just reminds me of my old life in TV, that if something can go wrong, it will go wrong.
Absolutely. So, you were the very last person that I thought that we'd have a problem with getting onto the system. Hey, never mind. Anyway, you're here now. First question to you: why did you choose that song?
Well, lots of reasons. I love it at a musical level, and I do like Dolores O'Riordan's approach to singing, which is kind of unique. That sort of ululating noise. But I think, perhaps at a slightly more profound level, if we're allowed to be profound at lunchtime, it's that there is always hope that even the most intractable problems in the world, peace in Northern Ireland, for example, many years ago, are achievable if people talk, if they network, if they get together. And I guess, that's why I love LinkedIn, to bring it into the other thing that you want to talk to me about, is that it's just a great way of talking to people. And jaw, as somebody famous once said, is much better than war. So that's why I chose that particular song, but mainly because it's just a great song.
It is an absolutely stunning song. So I do a show on Facebook every Tuesday and Thursday, and I just play my guitar. And so that will get a full airing at 1:30 on my show today. So if anyone's interested and want to see the full version, then that's what you get. And I have it on good authority that in my band, we will be doing that song. So imagine a full set of drums and a bass line as well. So
brilliant.
Yeah,
you're a man of many talents.
I look forward to that. Well, I don't know about that. Anyway, sir, how long have you been on LinkedIn?
Gosh, do you know, I really don't know. Probably about 5 or 6 or 7 years, but the first 5-6 years I kind of discount, really, because I got, like so many people, I got a LinkedIn account and then I wasn't really sure what to do with it. Not terribly much. I had little kind of bursts of enthusiasm when I'd post stuff, and then I'd get quite sort of disheartened that it didn't lead to much, frankly. And then I give up again and go quiet for months, possibly even years. So I've been on it for a long while, but I've been active on it for a relatively short while, probably 6 months.
Right. Okay. That's cool.
Really active.
And why do you use LinkedIn, sir?
Well, for business, I guess, is the short answer, because it's a great way of networking with people. It's a great way of showcasing one's own talents, insofar as I have any. But it's also a fantastic way of seeing what other people are up to. And my business, one way or another, over the years has involved the need to be creative. And one of the greatest ways of being creative is just to bounce ideas off one another, to spark off one another, to see what other people are doing and to riff on that and to find what you need in that particular sort of networky environment. Plus the fact I love people. So why wouldn't you love LinkedIn?
Absolutely. I love it. It's a great answer. That is a great answer. What do you like about LinkedIn then, as opposed to other channels?
Well, that it has purpose. I mean, I do use the other channels if we're allowed to mention them here. I
Yeah, of
use
course we
Facebook,
can.
I use Instagram, I blog. I'm a social creature, and of course, human beings are to a greater or lesser extent social beings, social creatures. So I think Zuckerberg and others, when they thought up the social web, were tapping into something innately human, the human desire to interact with one another, as I say, to a greater or a lesser extent. And business has always been about interacting with other people. Let's face it, if you were selling olives in the agora in the market square in ancient Greece or Rome or whatever, you'd kind of have an A-frame on that said in Latin or Greek, "Buy my juicy olives," and you'd wander up and down the busiest part of the square in order to sell your your tasty olives, possibly greasy olives as well. And you were trying to engineer as many face-to-face, in-person collisions between your sales pitch and your customers, your potential customers. Strikes me LinkedIn, hasn't changed really, or human beings haven't changed the way they do business very much. It's just now that we're trying to engineer those collisions in a virtual sense rather than in a physical sense. And that's what I like about it.
No, perfect. Just imagine you wandering up and down ancient Rome.
Yeah, buy my greasy olives.
Yeah,
Perhaps
absolutely.
I'm not doing terribly well. Maybe my messaging needs a little bit of help here.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's where I come in, isn't it?
Yes.
Good afternoon, Jeff. Thanks for the comment. If you've got any questions for Richard, then please put them up. So you often post some of your content, don't you? And I've just looked at what I've written. You're from the BBC and you're now A to Z, but you're not A to Z. You're doing Z to A, aren't you? Tell us about that.
Well, dare to be different. It's a busy place. It's a busy marketplace. If we think of LinkedIn as analogous to that crowded market square in ancient Rome or London or New York or wherever. And in order to come to the attention of the people you need to come to the attention of, being creative, daring to be different, I think is crucial. So everybody pretty much starts at the letter A if they're doing an A to Z of presenting. So I just thought, well, do you know what? Why don't I start with Z or Y or X? Start at the other end of the alphabet rather than in the conventional and obvious place. I didn't want to be a slave to the alphabet either. If you start with A, people then expect you to move on to B next and then to C. And frankly, I couldn't think of very many B's and C's initially. I was thinking of Z for Zoom, which is how many of us are doing our presentations these days. So Z seemed an obvious starting point for all sorts of reasons, but mainly because I'm perverse and like doing things back to front.
That's hilarious. Morning, Debbie. So Debbie's just joining us from Florida. So she's just having her morning coffee.
Good morning, Debbie. And we're really jealous because you're probably going to tell us that it's about in your money 72.
It's all right. I won't share that on the screen. Don't worry. And Dawn wants to say hi because we're both great guys. So thank you, Dawn. Hi to you too. You're pretty good too. So this you're just saying you started with Z. Simon Sinek started with Y, didn't he? Sorry, I couldn't help that one.
True. Is there anything new under the sun? The answer probably is no. But trying to be a little bit different, I think, in order for people to go like that, because we scroll past stuff or up and down on our timelines these days, and the thing we have to try to do is, if you like, try and reach in and grab people, pull them into our sphere, into our orbit for at least long enough to communicate something meaningful to them or useful to them in some way.
Fantastic. So you post your own stuff, you do your own videos and things like that. How much time do you spend a day on LinkedIn, sir?
I try, thanks to your good offices, I try to spend a little bit of time every day. A little bit is kind of loosely defined. Some days I'll find that I've spent an hour creating content, posting that content, answering people's questions and so on. Other days I perhaps have other things that are equally important or potentially more important to do, and I find myself a little bit short of time. And on those days, it may be a 5-minute glimpse here and there, desperately trying to keep up with all of the new content that comes your way when you have even a modest number of connections or followers.
Right, cool. Right then, do you have a best time to post, or is it just as and when the moment catches you?
That's a really good question, Ashley. I used to like a lot of people in the creative industries, get kind of really excited by the content that I created and want to get it out there straight away. No time like the present. But I have come to realize that one can waste an awful lot of time and effort that's been invested into a piece of content by posting it at the wrong time. So I just try and think of it in terms of what's the right time for the people I'm trying to target. And I know having a target audience sounds really tawdry and can make this whole sort of friendly human network seem rather less friendly. But, you know, when are they awake, for example? If I'm targeting Debbie and her colleagues in the US, clearly I've got to think about US time zones, or, you know, East Coast and West Coast time zones. And in the UK, if I post stuff on a Saturday, of course, people are busy doing the weekly shop or taking the kids to soccer or doing their own sporty thing. I absolutely get that. Sunday afternoon in winter might be better than Sunday afternoon in summer when it's broad daylight. So I try. I'm probably failing as well, but I try to think, when is the optimum time from the audience's perspective?
No, absolutely superb. Got a great question from Mikkel. I'm going to leave that there for a second because I want to know a little bit about what you do. And the first thing I want you to do is to press that button that shows us all the things that you can do. Because I've got one camera here, guys. It's just here on my laptop, and every time I speak to Richard, I have studio envy.
Well, let me press button number 6 first, which gives you a slightly wider context of the space we've got set up.
And so now we can see your buttons as well, can't we?
You can see my shirt buttons, but more importantly, you can see the buttons down here that I'm pressing. So if I press button number 2, if you look just behind my shoulder there, you'll see there's an old school white board or flip chart. Button number 2 brings up that camera. And, you know, sometimes old tech is a whole lot better than new tech. So we do some of our work standing up at a flip chart because it can't be beaten. It stood the test of time. I can then sit back down and press button 3. Button 3 is overhead cam. So you'll see I've made a few notes. Perhaps I should cover those over. It's giving the game away. But we try to have fun when we work on LinkedIn and indeed anywhere. So we play cards, we use luggage tags. You see a jazzy MacBook computer here just off to the side that we sometimes use. And just for today, I've decided that I think it's button 8. Is it button 8? I've got a camera pointing out of the window because one of the upsides, and I hesitate to say this because some people have had a really, really lousy time because of COVID, but one of the upsides of COVID is that I'm able to work from a home office, and that's the view out of the window. And if you think that you can get away with just watching that for the rest of this session, I can pop myself up, whoops, wrong button. I can pop myself up in the corner there and keep my beady eye on you and make sure that you're not just looking for birds in the trees.
So everybody now wants your setup, which is absolutely superb. So
I've even got a smoke machine. How sad is that? And I've got a green screen behind me, which I won't pull down now because the time isn't right, but a green screen behind me. So I can be anywhere in the world when I'm talking to people and they won't know that the world isn't really behind me. It's just virtually behind me.
Ah, fantastic. That's superb. And you've done a video on that, haven't you? That's on your channel on LinkedIn.
On green screens. Yeah.
No, on your different cameras, because the thing is, when I first spoke to you, I thought, oh my goodness, this guy's got so much money. And you did a video on LinkedIn, and basically if you get the first bit of kit and then you can add lots of different things to it, and it's not stupid expensive.
Yeah, look, if you've got a smartphone and you've got sort of a cheapy tripod, and a laptop to do your Zoom meetings or your team meetings on, you can join your own meeting with your smartphone, and without any additional technology and plugs and switches and things like that, you can have what's called in the business I used to work in a 2-camera shoot for the price of the laptop, which you've probably already got, on the price of the smartphone, which you've probably already got as well. So it is possible to achieve something that looks, you know, a little bit like, you know, the setup that we've got ourselves here, but without having to go to the, you know, we've spent a little bit, this bit of kit here, you know, down by the keyboard costs a few bob, but not too much.
Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. So the chat has gone absolutely crazy. Everyone's chucking stuff in. They're all impressed with this, so they all want a little bit of it. Debbie's just said content engagement on your post within the first hour counts more than timing. So lunchtime in any time zone is always likely to catch more eyeballs. And Debbie knows a little bit about LinkedIn, so I think that's a great comment there. Thank you. Right, let's go to some questions, Richard. So Mikkel wanted to know how you create engaging short videos for social media. Now, tell us a little bit about your background, because there's a serious bit of credibility in what you do, sir.
Well, it's kind of you to say so. Yeah, my former life was in television. I worked for the BBC. I worked for Sky News for a short space of time as well, mainly in news, but also in documentary production. And the word there is engaging. Mikhail's word engaging is important. You've got to engage people as a precursor to communicating with them. If you don't open up the pipeline, if you like, between one person and another, you can't get information down that pipeline. So engagement is important. You can engage them at a visual level by having lots of different buttons to press so that people are visually stimulated. You can use words to visually stimulate them. You can use choreography, you can use musicology. So there are lots of tools at your disposal as a presenter or as a filmmaker or a video maker to reach out and pull people into your orbit, into your sphere. And you're limited only, frankly, by your creativity. And the thing is, absolutely everybody, whether they realize it or not, is creative. Everybody has the ability to be, if you like, a TV presenter. What I've seen over the last couple of years, where this kind of thing, and LinkedIn Live in particular, what it's shown me is that there are many, 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 many people out there who are funnier than Anton Deck, who are more insightful than Professor Brian Cox, who are more profound than Sir David Attenborough even. They've got the skills already that are needed to make compelling content.
Perfect. So basically what you're saying is any idiot can do it.
I would never ever describe anybody as an idiot. Some people annoy the hell out of me. Present company, of course, accepted. Actually. But everybody has the ability to do it. And like so many things in life, it requires practice. I mean, if I look back, and I'm pleased to say I haven't got the tapes anymore, and they were old school, tapes rather than digital video. I was absolutely blooming hopeless when my life was television day in, day out. I mean, Lord knows how I survived as long as I did in the industry, because I couldn't even read an auto cue. And you don't need an auto cue, although we've got one here. The camera pointing out the window has an auto cue device on it. But actually reading from an auto cue is quite hard. But like everything, as I say, it comes down to practice. The more content you make, to go back to that question, the better that content will be. And I think if I press button number 5? There we are. There's a fella to reckon with. That's Lord Reith of Stonehaven, who founded the BBC where I worked. And his 3 founding principles were to inform, to educate, and to entertain. And I think what's crucial on LinkedIn is that, as well as to an extent entertaining people, we mustn't lose sight of the fact that people join this business network, LinkedIn, to be informed and educated in the gentlest, in the softest, sometimes in the most subtle and fun way. But if our content doesn't inform and educate people about their own businesses, the sector they're in, and so on, I think our content is probably bound to fail.
No, cool. I love that, and yeah, that those 3 founding principles, like you say, is brilliant, and we need to remember that. Paul Seeley, you've come up with an awesome question there, sir. How important is the backdrop, or is it all about the foreground?
Okay, all right. Well, backdrop, background, foreground, and potentially even mid-ground, Paul, are pretty important. Of course, we are likely as human beings to concentrate on this shot of Ashley and I on the foreground, on the faces that are doing the speaking. But that said, we can add or potentially subtract from what we're saying by having an inappropriate background. So there will be at times where I don't want this kind of bookish, oh, has he read all of those books? He must be very clever then background, because that could be distracting. I have read most of them, incidentally. They're not just sort of cheap books from Oxfam that I've put up there to try to kid you that I'm a learned, bookish kind of fella. There might be times where it's distracting, and that's when I kind of stand up. That's when I do this. I stand up and I pull down the screen. This is going to give you envy, Ashley. And then, the backdrop is less distracting. And that's the green screen that I can drop some other image onto if I so desire. So background, foreground, mid-ground, they're all important. It may be that you want to move something right into the foreground of your Zoom, because now that takes precedence over my face. And even that amount of movement from mid-ground or foreground to super foreground can be visually stimulating. So use your webcam as a kind of as a thing to play with, experiment. What's going to happen if I stuff up in my whole career, because I'm not a surgeon or an airline pilot, if I stuff up in television, stuffed, plural, past tense rather, if I stuff up now on LinkedIn, LinkedIn Live, Zoom, or whatever, what's the worst that can happen? People could laugh. Well, you know, I've got thick skin. Actually, I haven't. I've got thin skin and it hurts, but no one dies if you stuff up experimenting on Zoom.
Superb. Practice. Any tips for how to prepare for a practice? Love it, Tash. Love it.
Good afternoon, Natasha. Natasha and I know one another, and it's thanks to you, Ashley, that we do know one another. I'm a firm believer in not having too detailed a plan, because I think we then tend to look down at our plan too much. And as you can see with my thinning hair, people don't want to see the top of my head. They'd much rather see the face, the bit that's doing the talking. But planning is important. So you have 1 or 2 or 3 key messages in mind, things that you really want to communicate. And if I'm permitted to do a quick and dirty tip, the Post-it note trick, what you can do when you're armed with those key messages is get yourself a Post-it note, fold that Post-it note in half, and then tear roughly in the middle of the fold a hole, comme ça, and then open it back up again, sticky side down and towards your laptop lid. You then stick that over your webcam. I can't do it with this camera because it's a kind of bigger camera, so that the camera sees through the hole in the Post-it note, but it can't see the Post-it note. And around the hole, you scribble a word or 2 or 3. I call them the magnificent 7 words that exemplify your whole presentation. And then when you're looking at your audience, you're also looking at those key messages, those key words, and you're going to be focused. Your mind is going to be focused, and you're not going to stray too much and start talking about things that are totally unrelated to the job in hand, like whether you bought the cat litter on the way home or whether your car's got fuel in it, something that really isn't that relevant.
So that's a great top tip. I love that. I need some better, whatever they're called, Post-it notes.
You see, I coordinate my Post-it notes with my shirt.
I was thinking more your eyes. We've got loads of questions here. So Ashling, who did all my photos for my website, is got camera envy as well. And now Dawn wants a green screen. So can you change the color? Can you change the color of a green screen?
With a can of paint, you can, Dawn. But no, you can get blue screens, green screens. Actually, modern technology is pretty good. What a green screen does, in effect, and I don't know why it is green, it's kind of arbitrary, is it says to the technology, let's subtract, let's cut out with a pair of digital scissors everything on this screen that is green, and then you can see through the bits that are cut out to the next layer. So the next layer might be, something like a picture of Lord Reith of Stonehaven, and then I would be sitting next to him, and it would be like I'd transported myself back through time, and me and Lord Reith, me and John were sitting there together talking about the old days. But green, blue, pinky colors, theoretically you can key, to use the technical word, pretty much any color. But if it's too similar to the shirt you're wearing or your skin tone,
you disappear, don't you?
See through as well.
Yeah, you see that sometimes on the local news when the guy's doing the weather. It's maybe his tile disappear as he stands in front of the screen or something.
That's right, and they'll say something like, "And we've got really, really bad weather sweeping in from the north." And then back in the day when I was a kid, all the fuzzy felt that was stuck on a physical map used to fall off. So things have changed a bit, but the business of presenting, the business of communicating, hasn't changed since human beings stopped grunting and started speaking at one another.
Actually, fantastic.
We just
some of us haven't stopped grunting, Richard. Look, we've run out of time ages ago. We could chat to you all day. Everyone's thoroughly engaged with all that you're doing today. If anyone's got any more questions, that would be absolutely superb. We'll just have one question. I just want to go into next week because I've got the lovely Teresa Wart coming in to say hi. So wow. Teresa is just up the road from me. I was on her show recently, so she's coming in to talk about mindfulness and stuff like that. But Richard, you've been an absolutely amazing guest. Let's see if there's any other questions there. So Dawn is looking forward to seeing this in action. Guys, thank you so much for all of your comments today. I've got one more question for you, Richard. And the final question is, what tip would you give your 16-year-old self?
Oh, do you know, I remember you said you were going to ask me this, and then I completely forgot that you said, what tip would I give my 16-year-old self? Blimey, that's a really, really tough one, isn't it? I think you might have got me stumped there. What tip would I give myself, my 16-year-old self?
Well, while you're thinking of that, I've got 2 more questions come in.
Okay.
So, hello to Gran Canaria. Will, that's really cool. So, is that warm? That's not quite as warm as Debbie in the USA. So,
I'm going to Tenerife soon, so that's I could just swim across to see whoever's in Gran Canaria.
It was Will. I've read that adding subtitles is important as many people watch without audio. What are your thoughts, and if so, any recommended apps? Richard, that is a stunning question. Thank you for that.
It is a great question, and you're absolutely right. A lot of people will be looking at social media videos here on LinkedIn in particular with the sound off, because they're kind of on the bus to work or on the train to work or at work, and they don't want to disturb their fellow human beings. So subtitles are a really good way of making your content work if the audio is off. I use Adobe Premiere Pro to edit the videos that I do, and there's a fantastic new feature in Adobe Premiere 2022, which is basically press a button and it transcribes pretty accurately, thanks to some clever algorithm, your words. With a little bit of tidying up, you can then just click another button or two, and there it appears on the bottom of the screen or the top of the screen or wherever you want it to be. Another workaround, and a cheaper workaround, is to upload your videos to YouTube rather, and let the clever algorithms at Google do the auto transcription for you, and then download the transcription and re-add it into your video at a later stage. But they are important. Richard's absolutely right. Apps, not sure of. I need to look into that and get an answer.
And Debbie's just come up with that one as well. That's absolutely superb. And I've got another question coming from Jeff. So how important is the quality of the mic?
Well, look, I hesitate to do this to you, Ashley, and to Jeff as well, because this is going to give you mic envy. So this is the studio quality microphone that we would use if we were doing a podcast or we were doing the voiceover for a kind of a longer piece of video content. And the longer the content, the more important quality in all cases becomes, I would say. We are quite happy to put up with second-rate audio, potentially even second-rate video, if it's short and sharp and to the point. If it's editorially strong, we'll put up with technical weaknesses. But there comes a point where it's getting longer and longer and longer, and the technical insufficiencies or deficiencies, I should say, become more and more and more annoying to us. So I would say to Jeff up there in, I think, Northeast Scotland, Jeff, is that it's really important to get the quality as best you can. And it is possible to get good quality audio on your smartphone, but you have to be aware of the shortcomings of a smartphone. For example, up there in the Grampians, Jeff, on a windy day, your smartphone is not gonna record good quality audio unless you've got an external microphone to plug into your smartphone with one of those fluffy little covers. You know the things, the fluffy little covers? Let me run and get a fluffy little cover.
There's a little bit what I've got. They call it a wind muff, don't they?
A fluffy little cover.
It looks like a haggis.
Well, exactly. It was once upon a time in a different life. So this is the sort of fluffy cover that we would use if we were literally recording audio up a mountainside, and it works by basically the same way that an anorak works. It keeps you warm by keeping a layer of still air around your body that your body heats up and insulates you from the cold. This insulates your microphone from the roar of the wind by putting a still layer of air around the bit of the microphone that records the sound.
Fascinating. Richard, you've been a stunning guest. I knew you would be. Thanks for the heart attack at the top of the show. Thank you very much to everybody.
I just thought then the advice I would give my 16-year-old self is to wing it slightly less. So the reason that we nearly came a cropper at the top of this broadcast, if I can call it that, is that I thought, well, what could possibly go wrong? This isn't broadcast television. There's not an audience of millions, although, you know, the Watch Again will get an even bigger audience. I have no doubt about that. I thought, what could possibly go wrong? And you know, this is a proper admission here. I was complacent. And I left it until the very last moment, didn't I? And you were getting anxious. You said, hey, you going to join me? And I thought, nah, I'll just press this button and it'll work. And it didn't. And then I panicked. My heart was beating out of my chest. So my advice to my 16-year-old self would be, just take life a little bit more seriously, Richard, in those moments where actually people are going to be impacted.
So your advice to yourself at age 16 is, in 25 years, when you're meeting with this chap called Ashley Leeds, just add another 5 minutes. Richard, you've been a star. Thanks, everybody. And we will see you next week. Goodbye.